Ohana, I say no to all of your questions and proposed rule changes. We have all said no, and I'm saying no today. It appears that you have already made up your mind to pursue this government-to-government scam. You already know that everything you are doing in Hawaii, including the state of Hawaii government and courts, are illegal, and the only way you will be able to cover it up is to designate us as Indians and claim that we, the Hawaiian people, wanted this. The United States have violated and broken nearly every treaty they have ever signed, including ours. In regards to OHA and the so-called native roles claim of obtaining 125,000 signatures based on the overwhelming no's you have received throughout our islands, it is only obvious that there is a serious problem with the validity of this list and how approximately 100,000 of those signatures were transferred from other registries without the person's knowledge and or consent, being a clear indication of the support and perpetuation of fraud by the native role, OHA, the fake state of Hawaii, and the United States of America. We were already recognized as an independent and sovereign nation since 1843, and such had already established not only government-to-government relations, but nation-to-nation relationships with other countries that continue to exist today by treaties. So there's absolutely no reason for us to enter into a bogus government-to-government relationship, especially with a country and government that is illegally occupying and controlling ours. The only real relationship we want is a nation-to-nation, being the United States of America and the Hawaiian Kingdom, as it should have always been. So for the last time, not only are we not Indians, we're not Americans. We never was, never will be. So you can take your questions, proposed rule changes, government-to-government relations, and your illegally occupying polis back to where you come from. Mahalo, aloha.
And Bo Kahui, is Kaimana Grader here? Oh, okay. Can I? Ricky. Come on up, Ricky. After Ricky is Bo Kahui, Micah D.
Me.
Oh, Nick. Okay, did I miss?
Robert Freitas Jr. is
Okay.
after Ricky, then Bo.
Okay.
My name is Ricky Diargis, and on behalf of my ohana, I say no to all your questions and proposed rule changes. We have a petition over there and in the back there that we would like everyone to sign, of which the proclamation statement was drafted by Dr. Keanu Sai and Attorney Dexter Kayama, and it states, Declaration in opposition to the U.S. Department of Interior's proposed government-to-government relationship between the U.S. and Native Hawaiian community. Acknowledging our deepest aloha and gratitude for the wondrous achievements of our Hawaiian Kingdom kings, Queen Liliuokalani, and our kupuna, we, the undersigned, hereby proclaim that we object to and protest against the U.S. Department of Interior's presence in Hawaii to convene scheduled hearings in June and July 2014 for the purpose of considering measures to establish a government-to-government relationship with the Native Hawaiian community, as intervening in the internal and domestic affairs of the Hawaiian Kingdom in violation of international law, the laws of occupation, U.S. constitutional law, and the laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom. The Hawaiian Kingdom's existence as an independent state among the family of nations is undisputed, affirmed, and many times reaffirmed by the conclusion of treaties, including treaties with the United States. Until relevant evidence of its extinguishment is established, the continuity of the Hawaiian Kingdom as an independent state is presumed, thereby strictly prohibiting said interference in the affairs of the Hawaiian Kingdom by the U.S. Department of Interior. Accordingly, we call upon and demand that the U.S. DOI cease and desist the convening of all scheduled community hearings in Hawaii and all actions, including legislative, internal, administrative, or executive actions in furtherance of or to conclude the proposed government-to-government relationship between the United States and the Native Hawaiian community. By affixing our signatures to said proclamation, we affirm the memorial of the Hawaiian Patriotic League filed with the United States Hawaiian Commission for the creation of the territorial government in August 1898, to wit, whereas by memorial, the people of Hawaii have protested against the consumption of an invasion of their political rights and have fervently appealed to the President, the Congress, and the people of the United States to refrain from further participation in the wrongful annexation of Hawaii. And whereas the Declaration of American Independence expresses that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. Therefore, be it resolved that the representatives of a large and influential body of Native Hawaiians, we solemnly pray that the constitutional government of the 16th day of January AD 1893 be restored under the protection of the United States of America. Please sign our petitions there and over there. And remember, I said under the protection of the United States, not control of the United States. There is a huge difference. Mahalo.
Mr. Freitas. After Mr. Freitas is Bo Kahui, and then Micah and Bradley.
I'd like to make sure you folks see me. Aloha mai kākou. My name is Robert Freitas Jr. on behalf of my kings and queens in my kupuna and my ohana, including those who have just spoken before me. I say no to all of your questions and proposed rule changes. As my 13-year-old daughter, my son, and my Hanai son have stated, and again I repeat, our queen said no to your annexation. Our kupuna said no. Our people throughout these islands have shouted no. And we are saying no. So what part of no don't you understand? What part of being an independent sovereign nation don't you get? What part of an illegal occupation and war crimes don't you comprehend? Are you deaf? Don't you understand English? Apparently not. Under international law, the only way a country can lose its sovereignty and become a part of another country is through the spoils of war or a treaty. Whereas because there was no treaty, no war, and more importantly, no treaty, the only laws that apply between two countries without a treaty is international law and the laws of that country being the Hawaiian Kingdom law. Whereas because Hawaii is being illegally occupied under the laws of occupation and the Geneva Convention, war crimes are being committed, of which each of you, including you, Esther, could be implicated for due to your interference in the domestic affairs of the Hawaiian Kingdom and its people. Because Hawaii is not a part of the United States of America, not only is your attempt to create this bogus government-to-government relationship illegal, but so too is this meeting and your presence here in a foreign and sovereign country called Hawaii. The only people we want to talk to is your Secretary of State, John Kerry. For this is not a government-to-government issue, but a nation-to-nation one. So tell Mr. Kerry to please respond to Kamana Opono Crab's letter as soon as possible and to be very careful in his response to the questions indicated, because as you can see, we already know the answers. The people have spoken. We said no to your federal recognition, no to your bogus government-to-government proposal, no to your fraudulent roll commission list, and no to your illegal and unwanted presence in our islands. The only thing we want is the occupation of our islands by you, the United States of America, and the restoration of our true Hawaiian Kingdom government. Just as Queen Lili Okalani executive agreement dictates, just as the Kule petition demanded, and just as our people throughout these islands are demanding as well. After 120 years of illegal occupation, time has come for you, the United States of America, to deoccupy our islands, and any further discussion will be with the Department of State and the Department of State only. Because there is no treaty of treaty, as far as we are concerned, you are not the Department of Interior, you are the Department of Exterior. We absolutely no authority or jurisdiction to even be here in our islands. So go back to the rock you crawled out from, for as far as we can see, there is nothing for us to discuss. By the way, you can take Esther, Colette Machado, John Waihee, Robin Banner, and the rest of your paid-off cronies with you. Once again, everyone, please sign our petitions located at the back and at the side. Mahalo.
Micah, Bradley, Lady Troy, and Charles Kealakehe.
Aloha kākou. I came here to express my views about our nation. I came here to seek the help of all nations, including the United States, to make right the fulfillment of our nation, the Native Hawaiian government. We as a people are now embarking on a new era. We, the Native Hawaiian people, have a challenge among ourselves to begin a process to which we set up our nation
under which we get recognition so that we can have the rights and the entitlements of a nation. To do this, I employ the Department of Interior to look deep and to see how that process will work among our people. We have gathered now 15 meetings, and the heva, the hurt, the feelings have come out. But we haven't yet sat down to organize who we are. That's what we need. We need to organize. We don't need this kind of rhetoric. We need to understand who you are and begin to stand up and take and participate in a process. If not Kana Yolo, let's create one. But we have a role. There is a chance for us to establish nation-to-nation relationship. This is what you got to think about. The questions that you have before you, I don't know how to answer this, because there are heavy questions about how your interdiction in many different facets of our community has been plagued with mistrust. But I believe that there is an opportunity here for the Department of Interior to make right the heva that was caused upon our people. So with that said, I implore each and every one of us, our Hawaiian people, to gather together and begin the strategy to building our nation. No blame them, guys. Let's start to look within to build that nation today. Thank you.
Honorable. Is Micah here? After Micah, I have Bradley and then Lay.
Aloha Yauko. There's no need for nation building because we have our nation. The Kingdom of Hawaii, the Hawaiian Kingdom. And some of the language used in this paper that I received is kind of condescending. Should the Secretary propose an administrative rule that would facilitate the reestablishment of a government-to-government relationship with the Native Hawaiian community? Who is the Native Hawaiian community? Anybody that's a native of Hawaii can be considered Native Hawaiian. You need to use terms like the Hawaiian subjects, the Kanaka Maoli, and Hawaiian nationals. That's the only language you can use when identifying us, because there are many split different groups within the Native Hawaiian community. So that's a vague statement. And how can you reestablish a government-to-government relationship when there was never a government-to-government relationship with the state of Hawaii, because it did not exist and it does not exist? Should the Secretary assist the Native Hawaiian community in recognizing its government with which the United States could reestablish a government-to-government relationship? You see how they kind of spin it and keep going around and around? I think the three people before Uncle in front of me said it quite clearly. We are subjects of the Hawaiian Kingdom. We are illegally occupied, and the only cure is the restoration of our government. We never lost our sovereignty. We lost the government. We did not lose our country and our identity as a country. What is barely taught, what I was taught in public school is nothing like what is the truth. They say that they overthrew the Hawaiian Kingdom. They did not overthrow the Hawaiian Kingdom. They overthrew the head of the Hawaiian Kingdom, the government. We have never lost sovereignty. Mahalo.
Bradley, and then Lay, Charles Filipino, and Michelle Thomas.
Thank you everyone. Aloha mai kako. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the discussions that your visit has started. I just a little background about myself. I have a PhD in organic chemistry from the University of Florida. I moved to Minnesota. I worked at 3M for 8 years, and I felt the calling to come to Hawaii, and I came here in 1995. I've lived in Manoa Valley. I lived in Nanakuli for 3 years, and that's where my Hawaiian education really began. And I felt the sadness, I felt the sorrow, and I felt this is not a part of the United States of America. I always felt that. That was me. And I speak especially to people who have moved here, maybe not from the island, not born on the island. Quickly, the short history is 2 things really helped me out. The Pinky Show video and Hawaiian sovereignty and international law by David County Sai, PhD at the University of Hawaii. The kingdom was already recognized, many people said this, 46 different treaties were in place. There were constitutions, 1840, 1852, 1864, then King David Kalakaua was bayoneted into signing the Bayonet Constitution, which allowed aliens to vote. So the overthrow, which happened in 1993, was just by a group of individuals. From what I've seen, this is my research that I've just done in the last week or so. The second thing is, the Treaty of Annexation was proposed. Grover Cleveland said no, the takeover was illegal. So all these things keep lining up and lining up. Then there's the apology resolution, and then there's statehood, which really was not a correct statehood type vote. And all this and all that. So my final thing is, these events and documents display a pattern of deception and attempts to undermine and delegitimize the Kingdom of Hawaii by the U.S. government. The kingdom never ended. We are living not in the United States of America, not in the state of Hawaii. We are living in the Kingdom of Hawaii. Thank you.
I have Ray Keohane, Charles Pipio, and Michelle Thomas.
Aloha kakou. Aloha. I see so many of my friends and my relatives in this room. I agree with everything that Bradley said. Everything that Bradley said is totally correct. Okay. My name is Kealakehe. All right. Aloha. I'd like to welcome you to our beautiful islands. I am the Hawaii Island Commissioner of the Native Hawaiian Road Commission. It is my understanding that Nalehu Anthony in Honolulu presented our testimony in behalf of the Commission. Today I'm speaking to you, however, not as a commissioner, but as one of 125,000 Hawaiians who have come together to rebuild our Hawaiian nation, to rebuild our Hawaiian nation. For the sake of expediency, I will summarize my testimony. The question presented by the DOI, Department of Interior, is this. Should the Secretary of Interior propose rules, assist Hawaiians, assist in our process, and support the current process of Kana'i'olavalu, and assist in establishing conditions? My answer is yes. My answer is yes. However, I have two questions. If our people choose a nation within a nation form of governance, would the DOI be able to assist us with legal and technical support?
I'm sorry, they're not going to answer.
All right, we can put that in the record. Okay. My next question is, I'm a constitutional attorney. 25 years ago, I authored a bill in the state legislature mandating that Native Hawaiians cases be deferred to Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian dispute resolution process, rather than send the cases to the family court. Do you know that since Ho'oponopono has pooling in the process, that the bill was killed based on the First Amendment? So my question to the team here, the DOI, is, assuming we choose a nation within a nation form of government, what constitutional provisions would apply to the nation? Further, will these provisions be negotiable? All right? Because we need to know what we're going to get into if we choose at the time of the convention whether we want this nation within the nation process. So yes, in conclusion, I'm saying, should we propose rules? Should you assist us, the Hawaiians? Should we assist in the process? Should you support us in the current process of Kana'i'olavalu? Should you assist us in establishing conditions? And my answer is yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. I have Charles Pipio, and then after Charles, I have Michelle, is it Thomas?
My name is Charles Kealakehe. I grew up in Kealakehe. and I moved to Kona in 1984. I'm here. I heard some of his statements earlier. Indians don't consider themselves Indians. They're native peoples. For us to have a government, we need to work the process. The administration of our government has brought the Department of Interior to us so we can get organized. We need to organize as a group. I've been to many different native peoples, and they all have the same thing. They govern themselves. And that's what we need, to govern ourselves. We will not be a kingdom again. That will not happen. That is past. That is past. It's finished.
Who said?
We are the most strategic location in the world. The United States will not give up this strategic location.
That's what you think. That's what they want us to think. And
All
that
I
is
am
a
saying,
lie.
ma'am, all I am saying is, if we want, we have to compromise. We cannot go backwards.
All right, excuse me.
I'm just stating my opinion. I understand that.
Hey, Caroline, we started off and we asked that you have respect for the person who is speaking, because when you come up here, you will want to be
We
respected.
will be respectful, but don't you lie to us. We are tired of being lied to.
This gentleman has the opportunity to make his comment, and I would just ask that you respect it.
His opinion, but don't try and convince all of us that we don't have a kingdom. Don't you try and do it.
Let him finish.
All I'm trying to say is, there needs to be compromise. You're not going to resolve this issue by trying to fight the U.S. government.
That's because you said so, and it's not the truth.
It is a history.
It's history.
Again.
Because we let it happen.
Again,
We let it happen.
Auntie, I would ask that we be respectful. When you come up, you can say whatever you want. So the next person is Michelle Thomas. Thank you. Michelle, and then after Michelle, Andrea Merola and Ron Catherine.
Aloha, my name is Michelle Kealakehe Tomas. I just want to speak and say no, 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 no. And my ancestors never got a chance to say no. Hulihe'es, Kahonai'es, Kahanis, and so forth. I think everything that I wanted to say, the Freitas and the Kana'ai'es said it, but something kind of bothered me. When there was a lady that came up here and said 150,000 people signed. I think I was a part of that, but I didn't get permission. I signed up for helping out way back when, and then I was told my name was rolled over. I didn't get permission, so if there could be an investigation, because I would like my name taken off.
Thank you. I have Ron, and then I have Kalani Akea, Kini Ka'aha, Hui Ipo Freitas. Okay. Ron, Catherine. I'm sure I'm saying it.
Aloha, folks. My name's Ron Coughlin. It's 2 minute takes off. As soon as I'm done, I will give you folks a copy of the 1884 compiled laws of the Hawaiian Kingdom. This might help you understand that the Hawaiian Kingdom doesn't really need reorganizing. I wonder how many folks understand that the only land at the table in Act 195 is the small, bombed-out island. There is no revenues promised for this new nation. The state of Hawaii and Oahu will keep 4/5 of the revenue generated from the Hawaiian Kingdom government. The state of Hawaii will have jurisdiction over this nation. Sadly, this is like a blanket that looks warm and fuzzy, but it contains smallpox. And I pray that that dark history will not be repeated. Self-determination is a basic human and civil right. It doesn't mean the entity of the state of Hawaii, OHA, should determine for themselves what's best for others' selves. U.S. and international law requires Hawaiians to determine for themselves their fate. If you folks do anything, how about an independent audit of those 125,000 people on the so-called Indian roll? Perhaps with the disclosure of what they're actually signing up for. While the state of Hawaii and OHA tout Act 195 as a process to build a nation, what are they putting on the table? Only the status quo. Read it and you will understand the bad faith Hawaiians have been dealing with by the state of Hawaii and OHA. Perhaps the Department of Justice can send the Civil Rights Division down here and investigate who and what is conspiring to deprive Hawaiians of basic civil and human rights to self-determination. How about Department of Justice investigating why so much federal money has been spent to promote a political agenda for a small vocal minority, namely the state and OHA? How about equal protection under the law? Well, sorry. And I'd love to leave this for you. I brought it. And this is the compiled laws.
Thank you very much.